Today I'll update you about my wife's recovery from the stroke and also some of the things we've been trying, including the hyperbaric oxygen therapy, which is actually very potent for longevity. So hopefully this update is going to help you to think about if you want to use hyperbaric oxygen therapy in your longevity routine. Also, I'm going to ask for your advice at the end. And before we begin, I'm looking for a person going to work with me together to produce videos in the UK. Somebody who can come once a week to London area. Now let's talk about my wife. If this is the first video you have seen about my wife's update, then she had a stroke when she was 30. It was a severe stroke. She started from a complete paralysis, and actually for the first week she was almost in a coma. She has no recollection of what happened during the first week of the stroke. She really began from 98% paralysis. It was a serious stroke. Now we are about 9+ months into the stroke progress. What has changed since? For the first 7 months, we've been in the hospital. Imagine after 7 months under supervision and government help, you're being discharged with a disabled wife to your home. And also her mother came to help us as well, but it was a struggle because we have only one bedroom. So 3 adults with no help in the beginning from the government trying to remap the next plan to recover from stroke, knowing that there is urgency and deadline because there is a window of opportunity when you recover from such a physical trauma. So we had to act early. And to be honest, it was very depressing to be left this way. And to make matters worse, after 2 weeks, not only there was no further improvement, but actually there was a deterioration in her condition. She actually lost some neurological recovery that she gained in the hospital. I actually didn't know that it was possible. I thought, neurological recovery is only one side direction. So if you can move your thumb, then you're going to continue to move this thumb until the rest of your life. But this is not the case. In essence, in stroke and I guess in all neurological recovery, you can have a back and forth progress where you can have one step back and one step forward. So what we did was devising a program, a home program that I think anybody with stroke could replicate and achieve results. And after 2 months, I am satisfied with the results. My wife improves. She began to improve from home. So maybe you would find this valuable. I'm going to show you the overall program that we've been doing. But bear in mind that my wife didn't only recover from the stroke, but also 7 months of recovery. She actually recovers from the recovery because 7 months being bedridden also requires some physical rehabilitation to recover from the recovery itself. So this is what we did. The first element of my wife program has been the HBOT, Hyperbaric Oxygen Therapy. So the idea of hyperbaric oxygen therapy is exposing your body to high level of oxygen concentration. We have 21% in the air right now that we breathe, and then they put you into a room with higher oxygen, 90%, 95%, we went to 95%. But that's not everything because this oxygen is also condensed under high pressure, about 50%, 60%, 80% above the normal air pressure that we have right now. So for example, if you have done scuba diving, you know that there is a higher pressure underneath the water, or when you travel by airplane you also feel this pressure. So this is the type of pressure that you're exposed during the hyperbaric oxygen therapy. When you go to hyperbaric oxygen therapy, you can use soft shell and hard shell, and the difference is the pressure of the oxygen. Let me give a big thank you to Yusuf. He's a subscriber of this channel. He had a long experience in managing a hyperbaric oxygen clinic. So he helped me a lot to make the right decision on the right clinic and the right therapy, the right frequency. With the help of Yusuf, and I hope I pronounced the name correctly, we decided to only focus on the hard shell. And what we did was 5 sessions every week and 2 days off. So far we have had about 50 sessions. Yusuf also instructed me to pay attention to the energy of this clinic. And it makes sense, you have to go to a place that you feel fully relaxed, in positive mood, positive energy, because you want a condensed time of rejuvenation and healing. And we have found exactly that in the Hale Clinic. And I want to give a big thank you to Bina and the Hale Clinic in London because they really were empathetic to my wife's situation. And we were willing to commit to a place that was willing to accept our very dire situation where I pay everything out of pocket. And also, they were very empathetic and flexible with us. So I highly recommend the place, and they have terrific staff, and they have top-of-the-notch technology that they're using, and have a holistic therapist in the place also to look after my wife. So we have been doing 50 sessions so far with my wife. The Hale Clinic here in London, they also gave me 2 free sessions, and it was a very interesting experience for me. The first session I've done, I felt a bit tired after the session, but what I liked about the hyperbaric oxygen therapy from a lifestyle perspective, it's a chamber, right? So you can do a chamber with other people or only alone. I have done only mono chamber. Also, my wife, we have done only mono chamber. And what I like about this chamber that you're kind of stuck in a chamber for 45, 60, 70, 90 minutes, and you really cannot exit. You have to rest. And in this very hectic world, it's a very interesting experience that you're being forced to rest. So that was my experience. The second session I had actually felt a burst of energy. Now, what about longevity? This is a big lesson I've learned from the hyperbaric oxygen therapy for my wife. Maybe you can use this lesson as well for longevity, which is, I learned there are 2 different routines. One is consistent, non-stop oxygen exposure, and the other one is cycling. And if you've heard Dr. David Sinclair, he spoke about this cycling.
But one of the theories is that it's working similar to exercise. So hypoxia, the low oxygen when you go for a run, what it's doing is turning on this HIF-1 alpha protein that I talked about earlier, and that helps promote health in the body. The other thing that happens with exercise is the free radical generation that gives you a little bit of mitohormesis. It looks very much like hyperoxia. Hyperbaric chamber treatment does the very similar thing. You get a production of these free radicals, and that stimulates also a mitohormesis response that gives you very similar benefits to low oxygen. There's one theory that I have is that when you come down from the high levels of oxygen, it simulates hypoxia, like you're running as you come down from high levels to low levels.
So it's not so much the oxygen, the like explosion of oxygen that you're getting, but it's like once you like temporarily get used to that, then you come off of it.
It's the differential. And that fits with the new findings, which is going up once and coming down once is not as good as going up and down within a treatment.
So what they do, they increase oxygen levels, then reduce it after 20 minutes, you take 5 minutes break, on and off. And you have to do it for 90 minutes, because if you do the 60 minutes like my wife, then you don't gonna have enough cycles of these 25. They call it paradoxical hypoxia. You kind of use a biohacking in a sense that when you exercise, for example, you reach low levels of oxygen. These trigger a bunch of other mechanisms that help in repair and rejuvenation. Now, what happens when you go to hyperbaric oxygen? You get higher level of oxygen. So why would you receive hypoxia, lower level of oxygen? You do not, but your body thinks that you do when you cycle those levels, because your body responds to the difference, the delta of these levels of oxygen. My wife also benefits from that, but only at the end of the session, but it's not targeted. So what I learned is that if you want to target this mechanism, you need to go to 90 minutes and you have to go to a clinic that cycles these 25. But if you want to recover from stroke, there is a big benefit to get the oxygen consistent, because this oxygen also helps in the rejuvenation of the brain. My wife's brain starved for oxygen. So this is why when you try to recover from a disease or probably even injuries, you want consistent levels of oxygen. But if you want to do the HBOT for wellness and longevity, you want to go to a therapy that allows this cycling of up and down. And in this case, you have to go for 90 minutes. My wife, she's been doing 60 minutes. I have to state that from a metabolic perspective, it's not completely obvious to me why would this be the case. Because at the end of the day, every time you cycle the oxygen levels, you activate something called HIF-1 alpha. And HIF-1 alpha helps in rejuvenation and repair. So I would expect both routines to work in longevity and also in neurological recovery and recovery from injuries. I think the jury is still out what is best in which situation. What I told you is just what I was told by a clinician and by a doctor that looked into my wife's case. And she told me she needs a consistent oxygen levels. And also this is what Yusuf told me as well. After 50 treatments, and we're going to continue forward with that, there was a significant improvement in the physical conditioning of my wife, especially muscular conditioning, and also in her ability to speak. The only area that she still struggles and did not improve during this time, but did not get worse, was the paralyzed right hand. She could do these movements, but there was no further improvement since the discharge from the hospital. The second aspect of my wife's program is speech therapist 3 times a week. Then we have neurophysiotherapists 2 times a week. Of course, my wife had to do ongoing home exercises following that. Again, everything works in synergy, hopefully. Also, she has an OT, occupational therapist. Then we have nutrition and supplements. Here, we struggle a bit. Supplements, I think we do about 50, 67% of what I wish we would have done. Let's talk about supplements. You probably know I've been giving to my wife NMN. I want to give a big thank you to Do Not Age that provided this NMN to my wife, especially during this time that it was more and more difficult to acquire NMN. And I think NMN helped her, especially in the early phases of the stroke. Of course, you probably know that I've been using high quality fish oil for my wife to supply DHA and EPA, especially DHA for the brain. EPA also reduces inflammation, also supposed to help neurological recovery, and there is a good evidence that it helps stroke outcomes. One supplement, and this may also be beneficial to you, I added to my wife recently, has to do with phosphatidylcholine. You see, when you take fish oil, it's not easily getting to the brain. The body has to use phosphatidylcholine to attach to the DHA in order to go to the brain. About, I think, 90% of omega-3 going to the brain going through the phosphatidylcholine. So there is a synergetic effect between phosphatidylcholine, which is high in seafood and also in egg yolk, with high quality fish oil. And krill oil is another great source of this phosphatidylcholine. So there is a synergetic effect. So I have added both of them to my wife protocol. 2 things about choline. It's a requirement for our body. Our body cannot achieve all the choline from within. You have to consume it from the outside. It's actually a required nutrient. Another important thing, if you do want to supplement with choline, is to avoid choline bitrate, which the bad bacteria can convert into a very bad molecule that you're going to lose all the benefits. And I have noticed that many multivitamins that have the choline in a bitrate form. This is the one we want to avoid. The only supplement that you want to take is the phosphatidylcholine. Another supplement I'm a big fan of in my wife's situation is the lion's mane mushroom. And I give it to my wife with a tincture that involves alcohol. The reason for that is the components in lion's mane that helps in neurogenesis, in the creation of new neurons, dissolve in alcohol, not water. And so by taking it in a tincture with a bit of alcohol, you get a better potency and bioavailability of those neurogenesis compounds. And I think it's one of the reasons why my wife improved so much, especially during the hospital. So it's still in the protocol that we're using. What would be the ideal nutrition in this situation, you may ask? The ideal nutrition for my wife in this situation, and I think any neurological recovery, would be what Dr. Terry Walls have been developing. She's a doctor who developed multiple sclerosis. And you may say, well, multiple sclerosis and stroke are not the same thing. But where my wife is currently, where she's a place where she needs neurogenesis, she needs to help her body to build new neurons and recover from neurological damage, then you achieve the same result. You want to rebuild new neurons, improve neurological function. And Dr. Terry Walls, and she's famous for a TED Talk about 12 years ago, and she's been helping MS patients ever since. She developed a nutritional program that helps to recover from MS, and I honestly believe this is the best nutrition for my wife, but it requires discipline, and we have not been able to do that. One of the reasons is I don't have a full control over her nutrition, and because the lifestyle is so demanding and she doesn't have a lot of comfort, I cannot force my wife to use the best nutrition possible. There is so much my wife can take. Going every day to the oxygen therapy and doing all these exercises is not easy for her. And currently food is probably the only comfort. So eating this kind of food like Terry suggested is currently difficult for her. The good thing about my wife's nutrition is that she avoids sugar. What I'm trying to say here, there is a difference between the theory, what I would ideally do, to the practice, the self-discipline, the cooperation between people, and what the patient can do. I want to touch on a last thing about nutrition. We know that when you want to build new neurons, it requires a lot of energy. Babies, for example, their brain requires about 60% of all the body's energy, as opposed to us, where the brain consumes about 25% during rest. So it tells you that we need extra energy to build new neurons, not just to maintain the current ones. I've been trying to give her MCT. The reason is, neurons burn either glucose or ketones. In the hospital, I managed to convince the medical staff to give her, via the NG tube, MCT enhanced formula. And they managed to do that. And I think it's one of the reasons why she recovered so well during the hospital, from a complete paralysis to regaining about 60%, maybe 55% of the neurological recovery, not the muscular recovery. Now, after they removed the NG tube, it was more difficult for me to integrate MCT oil into her diet because it's not very tasty for her. But we found a chocolate that includes MCT recently, one of which is about 26% MCT. It's sold in Israel. But there is another type of chocolate that has zero sugar. Maybe I'm going to put a link to that has about 5-6% MCT. So I'm trying to put into my wife's body the nutrition as much as MCT as possible to allow more fuel for the brain to burn and use that to repair the brain and create new neurons. Another thing I would like to implement in this program, beside the supplements and foods, would be integration of peptides. You have heard about peptides in longevity. These are small molecules like hormones, a bit smaller. And in longevity, we use them to rejuvenate the body. So they go down like anything that goes down in age, right? Hormones go down, coenzyme Q10 goes down, NAD goes down, so also peptides. And also there is a type of peptide called cerebrolysine that could help stroke. It gives the instruction to rebuild new neurons. And I want to give it to my wife. Currently, she resists that. We kind of try to figure out the best timing to do that. And this would be another aspect that we haven't tried yet, and I want to try. Let's speak about the emotional stuff. One of the things that you realize when somebody close to you has a massive deterioration in health is that one person cannot do all the job. You need the help of many other people. And they say it takes a village to raise a child, and I can say it takes a town to recover from a severe stroke. The resources needed, the emotional, physical, financial energy needed to recover from a severe stroke, are much beyond what one person can provide. And I'm very grateful for all the people and quote-unquote foreigners who helped us during this road so far, even though we have a long way to go. Because before we can help anybody, we have to survive ourselves in this maddening life. And helping another human being can only come from a surplus of love that we have after we manage to survive on our own. So I don't take for granted any help I received. And today I'm a changed man. When I was 20, I was suspicious about humanity in general. And, you have to go through these experiences to see the goodness in humans. When your wife is having a severe unexpected stroke, your heart opens up to the complete strangers who turn out to be family not so different from the one that you already have. Everybody wants to help, and everybody can try to help with what they can. And my wife would never have been in this good situation she is right now. And for me, after this stroke and the kindness of foreigners, I don't see a lot of difference between close family to the human family. And I think I've been touched for life. For the rest of my life, I'm going to have trust and faith in human goodness. I told you in the beginning of this video that I'm looking for advice from you. It has to do with my teeth. during the severe stroke of my wife, I didn't know that, but I guess probably due to the high stress levels, I began to grind my teeth over and over for 3-4 months. And apparently it was enough to cause a teeth wear, a severe teeth wear, to the level where when I chew food, I actually don't enjoy it, or at least not as much as prior to my wife's stroke. And a person who tried to fast as much as possible and eat as little as possible, it's very difficult for me to fast and then not enjoy the meal that I do eat. Now, I went to the dentist and they weren't sure about what would be the best route for me. They only had expertise on how to prevent further deterioration. But currently, I'm not happy with the state of my teeth. I have a program that I managed to reverse the hole in my teeth, but I don't think it's going to work naturally this time. I think I need the help of someone who knows the best technology to rebuild a layer of the teeth again so I could enjoy food once again. So if you're aware of some technology or treatment in the UK or even in Europe that specializes in extremely successful way to recover from teeth wear, then please let me know in the comments. And remember, if you want to work with me in editing my videos and even more than that, please send me an email or leave me a comment. Thank you so much.